Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Carving It Up 2022 NFL Kickoff Show. I am Bryson Carver, and after a long 200-plus day wait, yes, I've been counting because I know you've been counting, the NFL is back, ladies and gentlemen. We got a lot to talk about today. I got my man Ryan Flowers from Clutch Sports Talk joining in just a second, but we're going to discuss basically division by division, all 8. Who wins, who makes the playoffs, wild card teams, award winners, who's winning MVP, offensive player of the year, defensive player of the year, rookies, coaches, comeback player of the year. And then most importantly, we know what this is all about. It's about the Super Bowl. Okay, I'm going to predict my AFC and NFC playoff bracket and who I got winning this year's Super Bowl. I just have to mention this is the third straight year that I've done this, the Carving It Up NFL Kickoff Show. And I must say, I'm still going to hang my hat on the fact that 2 years ago, I had Kansas City and Tampa Bay getting to the Super Bowl and having Tampa Bay winning it. And that is actually exactly what happened. For the podcast audience, I'm actually wearing my Tom Brady jersey today, in part because I think there's a very good chance this could be it for the greatest of all time. But enough messing around. Joining the show right now is a guy who's actually was one of the very first guests on Carving It Up Live. He has become like an older brother to me. Would you please welcome Ryan Flowers? Oh, hold on. We got the graphic messed up here. Ryan Flowers is joining Carving It Up Live. Hold on. There he is. What's up, my man? Oh, I got you muted. Let's see.
There we go. Can you hear me?
There we go. Yes.
All right, man. Hey, thanks, Bryson, man. It's always a pleasure stopping by, especially when there's football to talk about. So I'm glad to be here this afternoon.
Yes, sir, man. It's great to have you back on. It's great to have your show back, by the way. Before we even get anything, tell the people out there, about the show. There's been a little bit of, change to it.
Yeah. So, for those who don't know me, I used to do like a Monday, Wednesday type show. Just life happens. So I'm really super busy, but now I'm back. I'm taking time now on Sunday mornings to kind of basically break down the games for you guys in the morning. So I haven't ironed out the exact times yet. But I think I want to maybe start around like 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. So that's like 11 a.m. Eastern. So I can still at least sleep in just a little bit
there you go.
And get some rest. And so the show basically will just revolve around, the latest news around the NFL, getting you guys ready for those upcoming games. So I'm going to be breaking down the games, also some kind of Vegas betting odds. For those who don't know, I do live and reside in the Las Vegas area. So sports betting is a big part of my life. So I definitely want to touch base on that. So, but it should be a good show.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. And there's been a few shows thus far. You actually did your prediction show recently, which I thought was great. You had some bold predictions in there that I'm curious to hear.
I'm ready to back them up.
Yes, sir. I'm curious to hear what you have to say about my predictions. So without further ado, let's just stop messing around. We're going to start in the AFC. We're going to start in the AFC East. And I don't think even if you are a fan of the Dolphins, the Patriots, or the Jets, that you have any questions whatsoever about the fact that this is the Buffalo Bills division to lose. I've got them going 13-4 this year. They are absolutely, without question, the best team in the AFC. I think they will show that in the regular season. They will be followed by the Miami Dolphins. I think, once again, they have a 9-8 record. I didn't love the hiring of Mike McDaniel, considering the fact that he was from the Kyle Shanahan system. And considering obviously the massive moves they made this offseason, right? They added Tyreek Hill via trade. They added our guy Cedric Wilson from the Cowboys. They brought back Mike Gesicki, Mostert. They bolstered the offensive line. This Dolphins offense is going to be better this year. The question is whether in year 3 Tua can take that next step. I'm more skeptical than most. I don't believe he takes the step into being like a true franchise quarterback in year 3. The Dolphins go 9-8. The Patriots are going to go 7-10. And honestly, I kind of feel like this is being somewhat generous. The fact that you've got a wide receiving unit that is about as bad at separation as any receiving unit in football. We're talking Kendrick Bourne, Devontae Parker, Nelson Aguilar. This isn't going to work, right? You guys know my numerous questions about Mac Jones as a quarterback. The running game is not going to be as good this year because the offensive line isn't going to be as good as this year. Right. You've got a defensive coordinator, Matt Patricia, and a special teams coordinator in Joe Judge. running the offense as dual offensive coordinators. And reports out of training camp, which just concluded, are saying that it's been an absolute disaster thus far. It's even gotten to the head of Mac Jones, who usually is calm and composed. The defense will not be as good this year with the loss of J.C. Jackson to the Chargers. I think this is going to be a very, very disappointing year for Bill Belichick and Patriot Nation, and this will be their second out of 3 seasons where they win only 7 games, followed by the Jets going at 5-12. I'm not bought in on Zach Wilson. They had a great draft, but until you have that franchise quarterback that can make it all work, I don't see the Jets going very far this year. What's your reaction on this, Ryan?
I think all the teams are in the right positions. I do agree with you on the Tua situation. I don't think he's the guy. I think he'll be in the league, right? You're always looking for good backups. I think that's what he might be. He's like the Lonzo Ball of National Football League, like still talented to be playing professionally, but will never be like that guy that we thought he was going to be. So, and I'm not sold on Mike McDaniel either as a coach, as a head coach. So kind of weird guy. He just doesn't give me NFL head coaching vibes. But I mean, honestly, that really means anything, but that's just my gut feeling. The Patriots, I talked about this on my prediction show a couple weeks ago. I think this is it for Bill Belichick. I really feel like the time has passed him by. And the Patriots are literally they're not even a shell of what they were. With Tom Brady gone, I think Tom Brady exited at the right time. He knew. He saw it coming, and it's clear now that Bill Belichick cannot develop a quarterback, and neither can he draft a wide receiver to help any of his quarterbacks. And so defensively, I still think they'll be in games because that's what Bill Belichick does. But offensively, they won't be able to compete. And then the Jets, the only thing I would say about the Jets is I don't even think they'll win 5 games. Their first 10 games are murderer's row. I don't even, from what I remembered, I don't remember looking at the schedule, but I just remembered that I think the first 9-10 games are going to be legitimately games that they're always going to be the underdog in those games. So I don't see where they're going to get 5, at most maybe 3, 2. But the Bills are definitely the class of this division, and there's really not much more to be said about them.
Well, back to your Jets point, you were actually right smack dab on the money, because Vegas does not have them favored in a game until their 11th game when they play at home against the Chicago Bears. So there you go.
And they can lose that game.
They could very easily lose that game. I mean, you've got some games against the Bengals and the Browns, Ravens, Steelers, right, Broncos. I mean, so like you said, it's very, very tough. And listen, would it not be kind of crazy this year if this is it for both Brady and Belichick, if they both sort of in their careers, one in, possibly obviously I'll get to Tampa Bay later.
You're right.
Very ceremonious fashion, and the other, not so much. So, but yeah, I think we, for the most part, agree on the AFC East, 1 through 4. So let's shift now to the AFC South, which is a clunky division to say the very least. I've got the Colts winning with a record of 11-6. I think they upgraded slightly at quarterback with the addition of Matt Ryan. Shaquille Leonard, formerly Myers Leonard. He's now, Darius Leonard. I was thinking about the basketball player.
Sport.
Yeah, wrong sport. Darius Leonard, who is now Shaq Leonard, is one of the premier linebackers in all of football. They've still got an elite offensive line. Jonathan Taylor was just ranked by the NFL Top 100 as the 5th best player in football. Not sure he's that high, but he is elite. Loved him out of Wisconsin 2 years ago. But I feel like the Colts have the best roster in this division, the second best coach in this division, but certainly I think right now you can say the best quarterback in this division. They'll be followed by the Tennessee Titans at 10-7. I've said this for a few weeks. I think Ryan Tannehill is going to be replaced by Malik Willis at midseason. I've loved what I've seen from this kid. Is he willing to take over midseason, lead the Titans to the playoffs? We'll see, but we know this is a Mike Vrabel coach team. Yeah, they're always in the hunt. So I think Tennessee will win 10 games, followed by Jacksonville at 6-11. Still not a playoff team, but I do think this is the lock in Vegas to double their wins. Albeit they only had 3 last year. Everything that could have possibly went wrong for an already bad team in the Jaguars went wrong last year. We know about the Urban Meyer situation. We know about the lack of development for Trevor Lawrence. And so I think bringing Doug Peterson into the building, who has kind of been a quarterback whisperer. I mean, crap, the man won a Super Bowl with Nick Foles as his quarterback. You bring in guys like Christian Kirk in free agency. You get Travis Etienne back from injury from a year off. So I think this Jacksonville team is a team that will win only 6 games, but be very, very competitive in some of their losses. I do think they will certainly improve this season. Houston at 3-14. They're an absolute joke of a franchise. We know, listen, I forgot who. Lovie Smith was who they hired at head coach at kind of the last minute. This is a clunky organization. I don't see them going anywhere this year. Ryan, what's your thoughts on my AFC South predictions?
Again, I think we're gonna go chalk on this one. Obviously, the Colts are a lot of people's like dark horse Super Bowl contender. Adding Matt Ryan, I think, is a big upgrade over Carson Wentz, and that's saying a lot because Matt Ryan is literally past his prime. But I still think he gives this team a little bit more juice. Obviously, they're going to have a tremendous run game with Jonathan Taylor. They're going to have to improve on the offensive line. Like they took a step back last season. A lot of injuries. They weren't really living up to the standard that we had set for them. But a lot of that could be the quarterback play as well too. So I'm looking to see them kind of right that ship. And then also Michael Pittman Jr. Is he going to take that next level to being a number?
I like him, Ryan.
I like him a lot. USC guy. His dad was a phenomenal running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for several years. But is it his time now to be that number one? We've seen guys maybe falter a little bit, but I'm hoping that he with Matt Ryan can kind of grow together and see what happens there. Their defense is going to be legitimate. So I have no doubts about the Colts. The Tennessee Titans, I totally agree. They're a well-coached team. So I think with that, they're going to win a couple games. They're going to win just based off of coaching. Mike Vrabel is an excellent head coach in the National Football League. And I think with, they're going to go as far as Derrick Henry is going to take them, unfortunately. And it's not going to be far because I can kind of foresee Derrick Henry getting hurt again. With the amount of touches he will have, everything goes through him. It's only a matter of time he's going to break down again. And especially his style of play, he's getting up in age now. He's already had he's had a major injury now. I just don't see him being that workhorse anymore, and something's going to happen. And I do agree at some point Malik Willis will take over at quarterback. Ryan Tannehill, although he's the wily veteran, Willis is younger. A lot faster. I won't say faster, but he's a little bit shiftier, and that might be able to be the difference in some games for them. So I do see him in the future taking over. Now, the last two teams, the Jacksonville Jaguars, I think will be better just because their coaching will be better.
Yeah.
Doug Peterson, although, his time didn't really end well in Philadelphia, he took some time off, obviously. Now he's got a new, not a rookie quarterback, but a young quarterback, right? And Trevor Lawrence. And they got some offensive pieces there. Travis Etienne, hopefully he can bounce back. And really, this will be his officially of like his full season, right? Because he missed all of last year. See what kind of burst he can provide. Their defense will be good. I like some of the ads that like you mentioned in the free agency. And so I can see them taking that next step. Now they won't be a contender, obviously. But I can see them kind of riding the ship. And I believe they have two solid running backs now with Etienne, and then the other kid, Robinson. So they might have a nice little running attack. So we'll have to wait and see on them. And the Texans, I'm not as down on them as a lot of people are. I do like Davis Mills. Oddly enough, I know some people are like, what? Davis Mills? Considering he doesn't really have a lot of talent to play with, and you can kind of attribute that to Bill O'Brien. He literally gave away the franchise, right? When he let J.J. Watt go, he let DeAndre Hopkins literally go for a Xerox machine and a cafe latte, right? So their defense, I think, will be the strong suit. Obviously, Lovie Smith is a defensive guy. I like what Derek Stingley Jr. is going to provide for them. And there was another defensive back that I do like that they did have back there. So, but overall, they just won't have enough firepower. So I don't disagree with the picks. I think we were spot on this one, and I don't really have anything else to say about this division, but other than the fact that the Colts are the class of this division, but hands down.
I mean, again, it is a weak division. It's kind of a rebuilding division. I mean, the Colts feel like, as good as Matt Ryan is, and I think you both of us agree he is an upgrade over Carson Wentz in the spot. He is getting up there in age. A lot of the Colts' best players are getting up there in age. Tennessee's sort of in that in between, and then Jacksonville and Houston are obviously very young teams. I'm with you. I liked Davis Mills actually more than Mac Jones out of the draft a year and a half ago. But again, like you said, he's got almost nothing to work with. So yeah, that's where I got the AFC South. Moving on to the AFC North, which this is a tough one to predict. But here's how it's shaken out. I've got the Baltimore Ravens winning with an 11-6 record. I think they will, win the tiebreaker over the equally 11-6 Cincinnati Bengals, the AFC champion. I've got Baltimore at number one. Here's why. Midway through November, people forget it was the Ravens who was the number one seed in the AFC.
They were.
Up until they had just they came into the season, numerous defensive backs hurt, numerous running backs down. it wasn't until Lamar Jackson went down that they ended up losing 5 straight and completely missing the playoffs entirely. I think they come back. Again, their schedule is easier this year than it was a year ago. I think Lamar has something to prove. We know about the whole contract situation. So I think the Baltimore Ravens will win the AFC North. And Cincinnati, I've had one prediction over the offseason that I backed off of, and that is that the Bengals will have a major Super Bowl slump. They will have a Super Bowl slump, being that the loser of the Super Bowl has tended to have down years the next year, unless you're the New England Patriots. But I do think, listen, this is Joe Burrow, this is Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon, T. Higgins. I mean, they've got an arsenal of firepower on the outside offensively, and the weak link of their entire football team, the offensive line, they improved this offseason. So being able to bring a lot of those guys back from a year ago, at least the guys who were able to contribute and help them get to the Super Bowl. I feel like their defense is extremely underrated. They made some key, timely, sacks and turnovers in those playoff wins, especially on the road. So I got Cincinnati's finishing in second in the AFC North. I've got Pittsburgh at 9-8. Again, I'm hanging it around at 9-8 simply out of respect for Mike Tomlin. We all know he's never had a losing season. I do think that Kenny Pickett will take over from Mitchell Trubisky at some point this season. Question is, I don't think it's really an if, but a when type of question for Pittsburgh. I'll tell you this. I do think a candidate for Offensive Rookie of the Year, and I absolutely love this kid, George Pickens.
Right.
Pittsburgh, I don't know what it is. They have a knack for finding diamond in the rough type receivers who end up popping for them.
Yep.
I think George Pickens will be another one. Although, again, Pittsburgh's defense, we know they have Minkah Fitzpatrick, and we know that they have Cameron Hayward and obviously the Defensive Player of the Year, TJ Watt. So they will be able to keep them in some games. But I do think Pittsburgh will barely miss out on a third straight playoff appearance. And the Browns at 8-9, we know about the tumultuous offseason, to say the bare minimum, about the Cleveland Browns. Jacoby Brissett will be the starter, we assume, for the first 11 games of the year. Will Deshaun Watson take over in game number 12? We assume so. Will they even be in the playoff chase at that point? Right. Cleveland has a pretty easy schedule to start, but it starts to get kind of brutal from midway on. So what do you think, Ryan, about my AFC North predictions? I know you really like Pittsburgh.
I do, and this is where I caught a lot of flack from some people on social media. I am digging the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 1. And then I have the Ravens, and then I have the Bengals, and then I have the Browns. But let me talk to you about the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I know, and this is blasphemous because I'm a Cowboys fan, but I gotta call a spade, right? I really like Pittsburgh, and these are the reasons why. Number 1, they're well coached. Okay. Like you said, Mike Tomlin has never had a losing season. I don't think it's going to start this year. Number 2, you touched on the receiving core, right? George Pickens is going to be that dude. You add him on top of Deontay Johnson, who a lot of people don't even know this guy, right? Because he was playing with Ben Roethlisberger during, Roethlisberger's final games as a pro, right?
Well, Deontay Johnson, not to cut you off, he had a big game against the Baltimore Ravens last season.
He did.
Oh,
he did. And he just got some money. So I feel like he's feeling really good about himself. I think he's ready to step up and be that guy. And don't forget about that big guy they got over there. I know he's a social media groupie, but what's his name? Chase Claypool?
Chase Claypool, yes.
Like he's not a bad receiver, right? He's a really good size. And then you follow it up with a nice running game with Najee Harris. So they have the offensive prowess. And don't sleep on Mitchell Trubisky, okay? I think Mitchell Trubisky was in a tough situation in Minnesota. Or Chicago, excuse me. Now he's here at a team where they're not really expecting him to be that guy, right? He's there just to kind of hold serve, and maybe Kenny Pickett might be the guy later on in a couple weeks that the Pittsburgh Steelers may rely on. And I like Kenny Pickett coming out of the draft. I think he'll be able to push the ball down the field. He's a local product. And on top of that, you talked about the defense led by Minkah Fitzpatrick, Cameron Hayward, and TJ Watt. And the Steelers have always been a strong defensive team, and they always play their division rivals close. Now, so that's part of the reason why I like the Steelers. It's not to say that I don't like the Ravens so much. I think that Lamar Jackson's contract dispute is going to play a factor in his ability to perform. He does not perform very well in high-pressure situations, a la the playoffs. I believe he's 1-3 with almost double-digit interceptions, if not close to it. QBR, I think, below 71%. So he's not a guy, and I know that's the game playing, but having a contract looming over your head, I never played professional sports, but I've seen it time in and time out when guys are playing for those contracts. And he like I said, he's represented by himself or his mom, right?
Yeah.
it's not, I don't feel like it's going to work out from that. Everyone was oohing and oh my God, he's gotten so much bigger. His biceps are like pythons. I don't care about that when it comes to quarterback play. Can you throw the ball when you need to throw the ball? When I go to my mechanic, I don't need to know about my what I had for lunch at Subway. Like, you know what I mean? Like I don't care about that. Can you fix my car? Do you know how to fix a transmission? I don't care how big your arms are. And I know I've been recorded and documented. And I really don't care too much for Lamar Jackson. I think he's a great talent, but quarterback, I just don't know if he's that guy. He's very athletic. He's the second coming of Michael Vick. And look what ended up happening to Michael Vick before, obviously, his legal issues. He'll have the same type of trajectory in his career. He'll be oohed and he'll be odd, but really he's not really, he won't have that career like a traditional quarterback will. So I still like the Ravens at number 2 as long as they can stay healthy. They'll be fine. And then the Bengals, I think they are going to slide back a little bit. However, though, they did improve their offensive line. They added Lyle Collins from the Cowboys, which I think is a big boost to them because obviously they would have won a Super Bowl if they were able to protect Joe Burrow for like 2-3 seconds. Like literally, they were a half a second away from beating the Rams. Okay, that's how close it was.
Sure.
So I still like them. I still think they'll come back. I think everyone will be expecting them now. They're not going to be hiding in the shadows, and people are going to be expecting a lot of Joe Burrow. And is that something that he can step on? And I like Joe Burrow. I think he's one of the up and coming young guys in the league. So I'm looking forward to see how he handles this somewhat success, right? Making a Super Bowl, but it could also turn bad too. Because look, Dan Marino made the Super Bowl in his rookie year, never made it back ever since, right? Because it's not that easy to just make a Super Bowl, right? It's a team sport. And then I'm not going to say much about the Browns. They're the Browns, like you said. Tumultuous offseason. They had literally 3 starting quarterbacks in one offseason. And then I think now it's going to be 4th, if I'm not mistaken. And now that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to stay in San Francisco, I thought that might have been the smart play for them to maybe possibly trade for him. But he's going to stay put in San Francisco, which I have some thoughts about that when we get to the NFC West. So, but that's it.
Sure. No, I'm definitely curious to hear your thoughts on that. Back to your point. I'll start with your point about Cincinnati. To me, as shocking as Joe Burrow getting sacked 9 times against the Tennessee Titans, which tied a playoff record, as shocking as that was, is crazy. I think what was even more like wow was the fact that the Los Angeles Rams, on 7 of Joe Burrow's last 22 dropbacks, brought him to the ground. Obviously, we know about Aaron Donald, what he did, Von Miller. Yep. So, I mean, you're talking about one of the elite defensive lines of football against one of the worst offensive lines. That's a recipe for disaster. I do think that when you look at the jump from year 1 to year 2 that Joe Burrow had, the fact that Jamar Chase, I mean, out the gates was one of the 5 best receivers in football. So I think that duo, it seemed like they didn't miss a beat, after not playing for a couple of years, after their time at LSU together. They'll be fine. Again, like you said, offensive line improves. To your point about the Steelers, I mean, I've always had respect for Mike Tomlin in regards to the fact that, time and time again, I always say the greatest coaching job he ever did, in my view, was actually a year he didn't even make the playoffs, and that was 2019 when it got so bad he had a quarterback whose name was Duck starting. That's how dire it got for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they were still in the hunt. Duck Hodges, exactly. So, I mean, look, is there's not a big gap between Trubisky and Kenny Pickett. Trubisky's probably a better quarterback. So the question is, who does the Pittsburgh Steelers locker room trust, and more importantly, the coaching staff trust to win the games, to put them in position to win every given Sunday? To your point about the Ravens, obviously, people out there know I'm a lot higher on Lamar Jackson than you are. I think he is one of the more special quarterback talents that we've seen come into the NFL in regards to obviously his mobility. Everybody knows about that. But each and every year, I feel like he's improved as a passer, and I think he'll improve again this year. Although I am with you, I don't think putting on a ton of muscle is as big of a deal as people are making it. I mean,
really, it is.
Cam Newton was the greatest physical specimen that maybe has ever played the quarterback position. He always struggled with accuracy. But I do like Baltimore win this division, so I think we agree that they make the playoffs. Although you have the Pittsburgh Steelers.
And let me just add this about Lamar Jackson. Two things actually, because anytime I bring up this debate, right? Well, he was an NFL MVP. So what? So was Cam Newton, and look where he's at now. You know what I mean? Like, he was good for 1 year. Russell Westbrook won an MVP in the NBA. Doesn't take away from the fact that they were great in one season, but I need to see more of it. To me, Lamar Jackson is kind of like fidget spinners. You remember that craze? Everyone had a fidget spinner. It was cool. It was popular. Great toy, right? Fun to do, fun to have. But then after a while, you're kind of like, I mean, like, what have you done lately for? And I know he was hurt, so we haven't even talked about that. How's he going to bounce back from being hurt?
Sure.
So it's not that I don't like the kid. I just think he gets a lot of praise when he hadn't really done anything. Really, I mean, he's won one playoff game in four appearances.
Sure.
So that's my only thing with him. And as he gets older, his athleticism is going to dwindle. And if you can't sit back there and throw that ball, what difference does it make to me that you have a great regular season, but then in the playoff time you completely fold? So.
And that's the thing, and that's why I've said I think it is important. He has certainly improved as a passer since his rookie year.
Right.
If he can continue to make those strides, as you said, as his athleticism wanes, that'll be able to back him up in the future and be able to extend his career.
Right.
So moving on from the AFC North to what I think most NFL fans would agree is without question the best division in football. It is, as I've said, I think the best quarterbacked division in NFL history. If Derek Carr is the worst quarterback, then you are in very, very good hands. So here you go. I've got the Denver Broncos winning the division with the addition of Russell Wilson going 12-5, followed by the Kansas City Chiefs at 11-6. The Raiders go 10-7, and our beloved Chargers go 9-8.
Right.
More on the Chargers in just a second, but starting with Denver. People forget the Denver Broncos had a top 10 defense last year.
Right.
Problem is when you have, Teddy Bridgewater at the quarterback position, and then if we're just going back in years past, guys like Case Keenum and Brock Osweiler, Drew Lock, Trevor Siemian. I mean, it was some dark days at the quarterback position in Denver post Peyton Manning retirement. And so being able to add a guy like Russell Wilson, the Super Bowl champion, a guy who seems like every year he's in the MVP conversation, Broncos country, let's ride. I think the Broncos are. Let's ride. I think the Broncos are going to be winning a lot of big games this year. They've got a pretty brutal schedule, even outside of their division.
They do.
But I do have Denver winning this at 12-5. They're going to be elite defense. They added Randy Gregory to bolster what was already a very good pass rush. And then offensively, you have a plethora of wide receivers, although they did lose Tim Patrick for the season. Kansas City finishes at second. If you told me if someone came to today from a time machine in January of 2023 and said, Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes won the division, I'd say, of course they won the division. They won it 6 straight years. I do like Kansas City this year. I don't think that the Tyreek Hill trade is as big of a loss as people give it credit for. Mm-hmm. People forget they added Marquez Valdes-Scantling. They added Juju Smith-Schuster. I mean, this is an offense. This is an Andy Reid who, when Patrick Mahomes got hurt in a playoff game against the Cleveland Browns in a divisional round game, Chad Henne came in and looked like a serviceable quarterback. So, the weapons that they have, the way that they use their skill position players, Travis Kelce hasn't gone anywhere. The offensive line is still excellent. You have Creed Humphrey, who might be the best center in football. You have my man Trey Smith out of Tennessee, who's been great, a little overpenalized, but he's still an excellent guard. And then defensively, that's kind of my concern for the Chiefs. They did lose Honey Badger in free agency, Tyrann Mathieu to the Saints. But they still have Chris Jones. They still have those excellent pass rushers on the outside. Kansas City, absolutely. The fact that some people have the Chiefs in last place of division.
Yeah, I don't see that.
Patrick Mahomes in fourth place of division doesn't even make sense. That doesn't even sound right. So the Chiefs come in at second, followed by the Raiders at 3. I've wrestled with the Raiders all offseason because this is a team that did go 10-7 a year ago with absolutely nothing but chaos surrounding them all season long, literally pretty much from start to finish. And yet Derek Carr was able to guide them there. Obviously, everybody knows about the Devontae Adams acquisition. They still have, they added Chandler Jones in the offseason. And so, to add to what was already an excellent pass rush that they had in Vegas, my big concern with them is the secondary, which hasn't improved really at all in the last, 5-6 years. So I think that's going to cost them in a lot of big games. But they have Hunter Renfrow, who had 1,000 receiving yards. Darren Waller is back. He's going to be one of the best tight ends in football this year.
Right.
So I do think the Raiders will be able to sneak into the playoffs once again. And the Chargers at 9-8. I'm going to use a saying that you always use on your show. The Chargers are going to be the Chargers. And I'm going to use a saying that I've used. The Chargers are the Dallas Cowboys of the West.
They are.
Some have made the argument, and I'm not even going to push back on it. This very well could be the best roster in all football.
It is.
When you look at the additions. I mean, when you look at the additions of J.C. Jackson, Khalil Mack, they already had Nick Bosa defensively. They already had, offensively, they had guys like
Derwin James.
Derwin James coming back this year. I mean, this is a stacked football team led by a quarterback that I was very high on coming out of college, in Justin Herbert. I don't trust Brandon Staley. I don't. In-game adjustments, in-game decisions, especially late in games. We know about his aggressiveness on fourth down. His decision to call timeout in overtime of that last game against the Vegas Raiders probably cost the Chargers a chance to get in the playoffs. And
Yep.
hey, who knows what they would have done once they got in the tournament. But I do have the Chargers finishing last with a 9-8 record. But everybody in the AFC West does have a winning record. Ryan, your thoughts?
You know what? I might have to flip-flop the Chiefs and the Broncos. I know I had picked the Broncos, but when I think about it, Russell Wilson always starts off pretty hot in the last couple of years. And I don't know, it could maybe change the scenery, might have done him some good, but I don't know, man. I think that he may fizzle out again. And I think the Chiefs with Andy Reid is arguably one of the greatest coaches in NFL history. And I talked about this on my show a couple weeks ago, that he might even be better as a coach than Bill Belichick. And some people are like, what are you talking about? Like, Belichick's got the rings. But if you look at the body of work for Andy Reid and what he's done with so many different types of quarterbacks and two teams, right? He's taken two teams to a Super Bowl, right? I think his offensive mind, and like you said, Juju Smith-Schuster, Valdez Scantling, like those are not names that you're like, oh my God, like, just call the game, they're going to win. But those are very serviceable guys. And like you said, you still have Travis Kelce still roaming the middle. They're going to figure out ways to be very creative and get their playmakers the ball. And of course, Patrick Mahomes there, that's the most important, position in all of football, that in the left tackle. And they got that down pat. And like you said, their offensive line is good. Their defensive line gets after it. Obviously, their secondary is kind of trash now, especially with Honey Badger being gone. But for some reason, I think the Broncos are going to be good, but they're going to go only as far as Russell Wilson will take them, just like it's been the last couple of years, because their defense has always been good for quite some time. They just didn't have it on the offensive side. So I may go back and actually remediate my pick and say, I'm going to go with the Chiefs 1, Broncos 2, Raiders 3, and Chargers 4. Now, as far as the Raiders are concerned, you hit it on the money. This team obviously got a big boost with Devontae Adams, right? That's going to open up some more positions or some openings for these other guys out there, like Hunter Renfrow, who's arguably one of the best route runners in the slot. Darren Waller, I want to see him progress and get back to that Darren Waller from about 2 years ago. Now, he had an injury-plagued season. Hopefully he was able to get healthy and he can remain on the field. That's going to be key. Their offensive line is, they just cut their number 2 or first round pick from last year, Alex Leatherwood. So that tells you right there that they got trouble keeping the quarterback upright. So I don't know how they're going to address that. I'm hoping Josh McDaniels can kind of maybe navigate around that. He's a really good. I want to say that he's not an Andy Reid level, but I would say he's a pretty solid offensive mind. I would like to say that, right?
Sure, he is.
But we're going to see, this is his second gig as a head, well, technically third, right? If you don't want to count the Colts resignation, right? But this will be his second time fully around as a head coach in the NFL. So we're going to see how he goes, right? And then the Chargers, like you said, arguably probably the best roster in all of football, top to bottom. They probably don't really have a glaring weakness. If anything, maybe they don't have like a real running back. Austin Eckler is nice, but he's like a toy, right?
He's two-way back.
Two-way back, you know what I mean? And so you got Justin Herbert, who a lot of people are high on. I like the kid. I think he's going to take the next step. You got Rashawn Slater, who's probably going to be a Hall of Famer. I'm putting that out there right now.
Dang.
And
he's good.
Said, the defense is going to be tremendous, but Brandon, I can't get past him. I can't get past the guy that's running the that's running the ship, and the guy's an idiot. I'll put it out. He's an idiot. And I think he's going to cost. They were in the playoffs last year.
Yeah, they were.
But he cost them a couple games prior to that Raider game, right? He cost them about 2 or 3 games just by bonehead mistakes. And I get it. I coach football. I understand. I don't, and trust me, I don't coach at that level. I understand. But I do understand that sometimes we call it the fog of war, where you don't know what's really going on sometimes because you're so locked in the moment. But that's why you got to have people around you. And a part of him making those bad decisions is probably because he don't have a really great staff around him as well. Some of those decisions are like, come on, man. I'm at home watching the game. I'm like, dude, what are we doing here, Chargers? And I know Charger fans that I know, they're going to hate me for this, but the Chargers are going to definitely not make the playoffs again. And I hope that's not the case, because Justin Herbert is such a talent. I don't want him to be wasted away like some of the other greats that played in San Diego or now via the LA Chargers now. So, and I think that might be the case, especially with Brandon Staley as the head coach. Because who was the coach before him? I forgot
Anthony
his name.
Lynn.
Anthony Lynn. Like it was like almost literally watching the same team. And Anthony Lynn got fired, right? You know, because they couldn't win the close games. So what's going to happen this year if Brandon Staley doesn't produce? Is he going to get fired too? I think he should be on the clock or in the hot seat as well, especially now he's got all these guys on paper as being one of the better teams in not just the AFC West, but in football.
I'll tell you what, the Sean Payton rumors could come, crashing in around October, November. Who knows? Because there was a report I remember reading that Sean Payton, the Chargers were one of the teams that were. Fit. It would be oh my gosh, it'd be a phenomenal fit. That would to me that would vault them into a championship contender.
Yep.
I agree with all your points on the Chargers, and like you said, they do kind of a history of sort of wasting away the careers of elite quarterbacks. You think about Dan Fouts, you think about Phillip Rivers, and hopefully that's not the case with Justin Herbert. And again, with the Raiders, you bring up a good point about Josh McDaniels. Look, this is a second chance for him, right? We know about how Denver played out, and it was kind of a disaster there, and ended pretty unceremoniously. But I do think that he is an upgrade, certainly over John Gruden, and obviously we know about. The job that Rich Bisaccia did as the interim head coach. Many, including myself, argued that, hey, why not give him the job? But you do have an established offensive mind, coming into an organization with a team that's got as good of an offense as there is in all football. So I think the Raiders will absolutely be in the mix. The thing I sort of hark back on with Denver is they're a lot like some of these teams that we've seen in the past that truly were a quarterback away, Super Bowl ready roster. The only question I have about Denver is Nathaniel Hackett. But hey, he's been praised as one of the better offensive minds in all of football. Even Aaron Rodgers, we know about his weirdness off the field, but he's got a high football intellect. And he said, hey, like this dude, he's legit. So the Broncos got a good one. And I do think part of the reason Russell Wilson did sort of fade late in some of those seasons in Seattle, the offense got too darn predictable in Seattle. They were. There's nothing wrong with wanting to run the football, but when you get run heavy, when your offense looks more 2013 than it does 2022, then that's a problem. So I think Russ moving to a more modern offense where he does get more of a say in what they do is going to be huge for him. So I got the Broncos, and again, the Chiefs. The people that say the Chiefs aren't going to make the playoffs, I think it's just out of their minds. If you got a healthy Patrick Mahomes, you got Andy Reid, you're a lock to get in the playoffs, even in a loaded AFC. Shifting out of the AFC, let's now move on to the NFC, and let's move into the NFC East, where I do have the Dallas Cowboys winning with a 10-7 record. I know a lot of people are, more people than to me makes sense, are really high on Dallas this year as a Super Bowl contender. I don't know if it's just because of the Blue Star or Jerry Jones overselling this team. Who knows? But I have Dallas winning this division for two simple reasons. That's Dak Prescott and that's Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons, I think, is due for a possible Defensive Player of the Year type of season. I think Dak Prescott, this is going to be one of those seasons where it's probably not going to be his most impressive statistical year, but he is going to be asked to do more than he ever has been asked to do in Dallas. We know about the injury to Tyron Smith. We know about the fact that they did lose Lyle Collins in free agency. So your offensive line is certainly not what it was 5 years ago, right? We know about the decline of Ezekiel Elliott. We know about the fact that they, really struggle, which, for whatever reason, really struggled to get Tony Pollard out in space with the football, especially middle to late in the year. I think CeeDee Lamb does take that next step. I've kind of been going back and forth about that. And Dak's going to be asked to sort of lift a receiving unit that has guys like, James Washington and Jalen Tolbert and Noah Brown. Some guys, I think CeeDee Lamb, I think I saw this the other day. He is the only Cowboys receiver on this roster, aside from the injured Michael Gallup, who has caught a touchdown pass from Dak Prescott.
That is true.
And so that is, that's going to be something where Dak's been working with these guys in the offseason. I think Dallas ekes out a division title over the equally 10-7 Philadelphia Eagles. I think Dallas gets the tiebreaker there. But to me, Philadelphia has a flat-out better roster. They had a remarkable draft, being able to take, to me, the two best Georgia defensive players, being Nakobe Dean and being Jordan Davis, in rounds 3 and rounds 1, respectively. You had Nick Sirianni year 2. I'm still not sold on Jalen Hurts, Ryan. I know people love, the jump that he's made from year 1 to year 2, but sort of your concerns about Lamar Jackson or mine about Jalen Hurts. I struggle with, if I'm down 10 with 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, can he throw me back into a football game? He's got his deep ball. I've always said this on the show, and I'd like your thoughts on this. His deep ball, I always call it dies in the air. Like it's not one of those like a Matthew Stafford or a Justin Herbert deep ball that just comes beautifully into the arms of the receiver, kind of nosedives, almost like you ran 50 yards down the field and handed it to him. Hurts just kind of flutters in the air, and you see a lot of these deep balls that are underthrown. And so I got Philadelphia going 10-7 simply because they have a stacked roster and a good coaching staff. I do think they will make the playoffs. Washington goes 7-10. Yes, is Carson Wentz an upgrade at the quarterback position? Of course he is. But we understand the fact that he had about as perfect a situation as a guy could have in Indianapolis, and he had about two of the worst games that you could possibly have with an opportunity to get to the playoffs against the Vegas Raiders and most notably against the worst team in football last year, the Jacksonville Jaguars. He comes into Washington. We know they got Terry McLaurin. Offensive line's fine. Defensively, Chase Young is on the PUP list. So there's way more questions than answers. I think Ron Rivera is, unfortunately, and I love Coach Rivera, he's probably going to lose his job this year because of the fact that they haven't had the whole lot of consistency at that quarterback position. Washington finishes third, followed by the Giants at fourth. If the Giants are the worst team in football this year, I won't be surprised. Daniel Jones is one of the most limited starting quarterbacks in football. I think he will be a backup next year. Love Brian Dable, loved the hire. But I think at the end of the day, it's a poor offensive line. Saquon Barkley, for that reason, is not going to be able to get out in space with the football as explosive as he is. Receiving unit is, if Kenny Galladay is your number one, man, you are in some big trouble. Defense will be fine. Giants defense always is kind of middle of the pack. They added, Kayvon Thibodeau in the draft. But this is a 4-win football team. The Giants aren't going anywhere this year. So, Ryan, Cowboys fan in the building. What's your thoughts on my NFC East predictions?
I don't have the Cowboys at number one. I just think it's just too much to overcome. The Eagles got way better, and the Cowboys did nothing to do. I'm not a big fan of always having to do something all the time, but they didn't replace anything when they let guys go. Like La'el Collins, what did they do to replace him? Nothing. You let Amari Cooper go literally for what? Nothing, right? I'm seeing today, what's the guy's name? Jalen Reagor traded from the Eagles to the Vikings, oddly enough, right? For literally a fourth round. And we couldn't even get a fourth round for Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper is arguably a top 10 receiver, top 10, top 15 when he wants to be good, right? So coaching, that's an F, right? Ownership, that's an F, right?
Yep.
I love Dak Prescott. I don't know if he's going to be able to handle all of this, man. I like CeeDee Lamb, but is he ready to be the number one guy? And outside of that, what happens if he goes down? Michael Gallup, thank God that he can maybe possibly return in about 2-3 weeks, right? But how is he going to be, right? You hear comments from Jerry Jones about, this offense got to go through Zeke. Like, that's not what I want to hear, man. Like, Zeke is not that dude anymore. Although he's still fairly young as a running back, but he's not the guy anymore. So I just don't. I mean, I can literally sit here and talk 5 hours about the Cowboys, but we don't have time. But I just don't have them at number one. I have the Eagles, then I have the Cowboys, and then Washington and New York. Not much to say about them. Pretty mediocre franchises. Come on, Washington Commanders. That's all you can come up with. You had literally 2 years to come up with a name, and all you can come up with is the Commanders. That tells me all I need to know about the organization. And as far as the Giants are concerned, Saquon Barkley is going to get hurt again. And I know he's been on Twitter saying, people are doubting him. It's not that we don't doubt your skill, bro. You're just fragile. I don't care how big your legs are. You're fragile. You're always getting hurt. So that's it. I really have nothing else to say about the NFC East other than the fact that the Cowboys are probably, could they do it? Possibly. But right now it's so stacked up against them. I can't fathom them seeing them winning this division, and no one's won it back to back in a couple. I think it's been about almost a decade since anyone's won this division back to back. So that's the other thing you got to deal with.
Yeah, and exactly. I think it's been since 2005 maybe that an NFC East team has won the division 2 straight years in a row. I always add, just so we can go and pile on the Commanders as much as we possibly can. They've got maybe one of the worst uniforms in the league. I don't know what that is. Again, the thing that decides is the vast majority of these divisions. This was the case a year ago. I think it'll be the case again this year. The best quarterback often wins the division. And if you give him, I wouldn't even say Dak necessarily has enough support, but if you give him a a decent amount of support. I mean, it can't be, Patriots bad, but if you give it, CeeDee Lamb is, he has proven he is one of the 20 best receivers in football. Question is, can he elevate himself to that top 10? I think Dak can help get him there. And obviously Dalton Schultz, shout out to the guys at the Can Fan podcast. We know that they don't have the greatest relationship with Dalton Schultz, but you've got all these questions marks in Dallas, but the most important position you have no questions about, and you got a guy on the defensive side of the ball who, again, I think is due to have a massive season.
Yep.
So especially consider the fact that they'll have to win via shutout. Or shootout, I should say. That's going to be very, very important to have those two guys.
Right.
Moving on to the NFC South. I think this is fairly obvious. I got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning with a record of 12-5. Obviously, you have a 45-year-old Tom Brady, coming up. This, I believe, will be his final season. The question I have for Tampa this year is the offensive line. They have been absolutely snake bit in training camp. Right? They've lost Ryan Jensen. They've lost. Oh gosh, what's his name? Tristan Wirfs has dealt with injuries. Yeah. They had an injury at the guard spot. So everything that could have possibly went wrong for the Buccaneers. Ali Marpet retired. So, the most important units, not named quarterback, I agree with you, is offensive line. As I always say, the offensive line is like the air conditioning unit, right? If it's you only notice it when it's not working.
Right.
And so Tom Brady, a guy who we know is about as good as any quarterback ever at getting the ball out of his hands quickly, he's going to have to do it even more so this season. We know about the receiving talent with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. They added Russell Gage and Julio Jones to that receiving unit, so it will be one of the best in football. That defense added guys like Akeem Hicks, Carl Nassib to that defensive line, replacing guys like Ndamukong Suh. And we know about the linebacking unit, guys like Levante David and Devin White. Their secondary is, however, somewhat of a concern. The Saints, I have it too. I think they win double-digit games this season. I kind of like the Saints this year, right? They added two veteran guys in Jarvis Landry and in Tyrann Mathieu. I think Jameis Winston, people have had a lot of questions about him in terms of his leadership, maturity. Everything I'm hearing out of Saints camp says like, hey, this dude is ready to lead a team to the playoffs. They added Chris Olave in the draft. Michael Thomas is coming back from injury. We'll see how he looks. Alvin Kamara. And you have a defense that is, I think, without question, one of the 10 best in football, led by one of the premier pass rushers, Cam Jordan. So even despite the retirement of Sean Payton, I think Dennis Allen, who has tended to have the number of Tom Brady these last couple of years, I think the Saints are a 10-win team. I don't expect anything from Baker Mayfield and Carolina. It's a 6-win football team. The vast majority of these games, the Panthers will have the disadvantage at quarterback, which is never a good combination, and their offensive line isn't very good at all. And the Falcons, I feel like I'm being generous giving them 4 wins. Considering that what they lost this offseason, how putrid their defense is. I'm simply giving them 4 because they play in an NFC South, which is, I think, below average. So what's your thoughts on my NFC South predictions, Ryan?
No problems with the last 2. I think the Saints are going to win this division.
Wow.
Flat out. The offensive woes, the offensive line trouble for the Buccaneers is really going to really play a factor for them, especially you got a 40-something-year-old quarterback back there. And one thing we know about the Saints in the last couple of years since Tom Brady has been in Tampa Bay, they play them well.
Oh,
they play them tough.
4-1.
4-1. Oh, wow. See, 4-1, right? And that's with a healthy offensive line and a healthy wide receiving core. Chris Godwin's coming off a major knee or leg injury. So how is he going to be? Julio's past his prime. Okay.
Yes.
Russell Gage, nice guy. He's okay. So you really have to rely on Mike Evans, who's a year older as well, too. So I really have the Saints kind of pushing for this division. Jameis Winston, I know this is going to sound crazy, but he's a pretty decent quarterback. I don't like his training method. They look weird, but you add Chris Olave in the draft. You keep Mike Thomas. You still have Alvin Kamara, however you want to call him. Offensive line is pretty solid. That defense is still a top-rated defense, even though they traded Gardner Johnson this afternoon. Still a top-rated defense. And I think that they will play the Bucs very close, and I think they'll eke out this division. And as far as Carolina and Atlanta is concerned, I have no problems there. Carolina they should have just broke this up already. You should have got whichever could. You should have gotten whatever you could for Christian McCaffrey, because I guarantee you he's going to get hurt again too. And when he goes down, that's pretty much it. I like DJ Moore as a receiver, but he's not a number 1 guy. he's just not a number one guy. And other than that, they don't have anybody else out there that's really going to threaten me if I'm a defensive coordinator that I'm going to be up at night worrying about, right? They don't have anything else. Matt Rule's going to get fired at the end of the year. Hasn't been able to bring his offensive prowess that he had once he was in Baylor. Can't do it in the NFL. He's gone. And the Atlanta Falcons, they're in a complete rebuild. Obviously, it's been like that, but now when you let Matt Ryan go, that lets you know as a Falcons fan, like they're pretty much done. They're pretty much done. Now, I feel bad for guys like Kyle Pitts, who possibly could have been a really good player, but no shade to Marcus Mariota, but I don't know, man. I mean, if anything, I will say this about the Falcons: they might surprise somebody, and maybe they'll flip with the Panthers. That's my only really big bold take on them, is that they may flip flop, and that's pretty much it. But I got Saints, Bucks, either or, Carolina and Atlanta rounding out the rear.
Yeah, I mean, I still think Kyle Pitts, I mean, he's only in year 2. I still think he has an opportunity, should he get the proper support around him, particularly at the quarterback position, to be one of the premier tight ends in all of football. But again, I don't necessarily disagree with your love of the Saints. Again, I think it's a playoff team. Yep. I think Dennis Allen, he gets a second opportunity as a head coach.
Right.
I do think Jameis Winston is due for, I wouldn't say a big year, but a good enough year again to lead the Saints to the playoffs. Again, that receiving unit is kind of underrated, right? You've got can't guard Mike Thomas. You've still got Chris Olave, and you've added Jarvis Landry, who's one of the best and most reliable number 2, number 3 receivers in all football. So listen, if Tampa Bay does not win this division and the Saints take it, I can't say I'll be stunned. Moving on now to the NFC North. I guess sort of my boldest prediction thus far, I got the Vikings as a 12-5 team.
Wow.
Okay, a year ago, the Vikings won. I forgot. It was like 11, 12 of their games were decided by one score, and they won 2 or 3 of them. That comes back to coaching and late game execution. So you're bringing in Kevin O'Connell, who is a Sean McVay disciple. We know that coaching tree thus far. Zach Taylor, coached against Sean McVay in the Super Bowl. That coaching tree has been no joke thus far. So I do think the Minnesota Vikings, with their offensive pieces, with Kirk Cousins, who, for all my criticism of Kirk Cousins, the man did just throw 33 touchdowns and only 7 picks last year. I mean, the dude could still play. Justin Jefferson's one of the 5 best receivers in football. Dalvin Cook, we know what he represents. If that defense can improve slightly, and I think they will. I think the Vikings are a 12-1 team. I've been consistent on this all offseason. The Green Bay Packers are not going to make the playoffs. They've got, next to New England, one of the worst receiving units in football. If Allen Lazard is your number 1 guy, you got Sammy Watkins, Randall Cobb, Amari Rodgers. That's not going to work. Obviously, they still bring back guys like Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, one of the better running back duos in all of football. But you still got David Bakhtiari, who's still hurt. Aaron Rodgers is going to be asked to carry a greater load than he's ever had to carry in his career. And with a defense that's middle of the pack, I do not believe the Packers will make the playoffs. Detroit goes 6-11. Listen, we know about the kneecap biters in the Motor City. We understand they're on Hard Knocks and everything. They're the kind of the definition of mediocre, right? They lost a lot of close games out last year. I think they'll win this year. Chicago rounds out the division as a 3-14 team. I genuinely feel bad for Justin Fields, because that kid has absolutely nothing to work with on either side of the football. What's your thoughts on my prediction in the NFC North, Ryan?
A couple thoughts. I still got Green Bay winning it. Aaron Rodgers, man, like, he's a Hall of Famer. I just can't see Kirk Cousins outdueling him. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to carry this team to this division. Now, outside of that, don't expect much from them. They still have a good running game, like you mentioned, with Dillon and Aaron Jones. So I feel like if not Kyle Shanahan, but Matt LaFleur can run the football a little bit more consistently, like they have been, that might help them out with the receiving game, the passing game. And maybe Aaron Rodgers can elevate one of these other guys that they got out there. So, and their defense is still fairly solid. Now, they did lose one of their bigger guys to the Vikings. I'll give them that. I just can't, something about me just cannot pick Kirk Cousins over Aaron Rodgers. And I know it's a team game, but Aaron Rodgers is worth at least 6 to 8 games in the National Football League. And so that's literally the only reason why. So that's the reason why I have them at number 1. Vikings, great roster, stacked. Can't complain about them, but the quarterback play in primetime games, clutch situations. Can Kirk Cousins get it done? History says he can't. So I'm gonna ride that until I can't ride it anymore. Now, the Detroit Lions, I will say this: I don't disagree with the record. I have to give Dan Campbell a little bit more credit. I think he's a good coach. And you're like, what? The kneecap bite? watching the Hard Knocks, it's really changed my perception about him. I thought he was like a
Okay.
really like rah-rah kind of, I mean, he's a rah-rah guy, but I feel like he really garners the respect and love and compassion from his players. They will play hard for this guy. He may not be the wizard with the play calling, but I think as from a football coach's perspective, he's a guy that I wouldn't mind playing for.
Oh,
So
sure.
I'll give them that. And as far as the Bears, I feel like you said, I feel bad for Justin Fields. I think he's going to get the short end of the stick when we look back at that draft class from last year. Him and Mac Jones, they were not set up for success. The Bears have no, you talking about no receivers? Literally none, right? You know,
Darnell Mooney.
And he's a nice guy, but is he a number one guy?
Nice.
You know what I mean?
No.
He's nice. He's okay, you know, but Justin Fields, I feel like it was on another team with a little bit more substantial help on the outside. They might do something, but I think he's going to end up kind of flaming out of Chicago, and hopefully he can kind of bounce back in free agency somewhere. But I don't disagree with your picks other than the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, and again, and it's not because I'm taking Kirk Cousins over Aaron Rodgers. I just think, when you're talking about, sort of going back to your Justin Fields point about quarterbacks being set up for success, I think that Kirk Cousins is more set up for success than Aaron Rodgers is. Obviously, we know in terms of talent, there is a huge gap between those two.
But I think, but I think because Aaron Rodgers is who he is, it's not like it's like you're swapping out like Tua and Kirk Cousins,
right?
Like, Aaron Rodgers is arguably one of the greatest quarterbacks National Football has ever seen.
No question.
And I think it's like a LeBron factor, right? Like they're good for a certain amount of wins. You put LeBron or Kobe back or Michael Jordan, those guys, they're such on a different level. It don't matter what's behind them or what they're playing in front of. They're going to garner those wins. And I think that's for me, that's my decision making in regards to why the Packers are over the Vikings. That's it.
That's fair. That's fair. No, I got you. And again, like I said, I think Green Bay's running game is going to be a factor for them this year. And listen, like you said, this is Aaron Rodgers we're talking about,
right?
But I, frankly, one of the issues is I don't really trust Matt LaFleur all that much. Moving on now to final division predictions, the NFC West. I've got the defending champion Los Angeles Rams winning the division with a 13-4 record, followed by the San Francisco 49ers at 12-5. The Cardinals go 9-8, and the Seahawks go 3-14. I'm not going to talk too much about Seattle because we know where they're at with Geno Smith starting at quarterback, and they won 7 games last year with Russell Wilson. This is going to be a bad year for Seattle. I've got the Rams winning the NFC West for the simple fact that the defending champions, and unlike the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who kept everybody last year, the Rams said, "Hold our beer. We're gonna get better. We're gonna add Bobby Wagner, Allen Robinson, all these different guys that they've added to this roster." They typically draft very well for a team that hasn't had a first round pick since Jared Goff in 2016, right? So the guys that they may have been able to add this roster, this is still Sean McVay. I think Matthew Stafford has, I think, proven both of us wrong, kind of, rewritten the narrative about him, especially in big games. The last 3 games of the year, all were won on fourth quarter comebacks. So I've got the Rams winning the NFC West, followed by the 49ers. You guys know I'm a lot higher in Trey Lance than most people are. I think, like I said, if he is very good with that roster, that's a double-digit win team. With that defense, with Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, Juwan Jennings, the offensive line led by the best left tackle in football, Trent Williams, and Kyle Shanahan calling the plays. San Francisco will be just fine. Arizona's kind of my disappointment team at 9-8. Again, way more questions than answers about the squad. We know about the Kyler Murray contract situation. We know about Cliff Kingsbury's inability to adjust mid to late season. We understand that they lost Chandler Jones in free agency. DeAndre Hopkins is gone for the first 6 games. I don't know really what there is to be high about with Arizona this year. Can Kyler Murray continue to improve and get better? Of course. But I do not see this as a playoff team. And again, Seattle is 3-14. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with this list. I think I had the Cardinals at 2, but I think I want to switch that. I think I want to amend that, like Colin Cowherd does, because you make really valid points. There's not much to say about the Rams. They're like the Buffalo Bills in the AFC East. Like, head over heels, they have the best talent in all of football. The Niners, I agree with Trey Lance. If he could just be comparable to even Jimmy Garoppolo, that's a plus for the Niners. I mean, Garoppolo still led them to the playoffs, and literally they're 1 interception away from possibly being in the Super Bowl, right? So I really like the Niners roster. I think that they're young. They have a nice blend of young and veteran players, and I think that's gonna. And Kyle Shanahan is a great play caller.
Yes.
So he's very creative. I think he'll be able to get the most out of Trey Lance. Okay, obviously. And the Cardinals, literally, like you said, Chandler Jones is gone. Kyler Murray, I think he's going to take a step back.
Okay.
A lot has been learned about him, about his character, and I like him as a player, but he seems kind of like a douchebag. I mean, it's something about him. He's very entitled. That's at least
He is.
that's what I get from him. He's a little man, and he's phenomenal. Don't get me wrong, but I think they don't have enough there. They just don't have enough. Like you said, D-Hop's out for the first 6 weeks. Who else are they going to go to? Who else are they going to rely on to get the job done in a tough division? And I just don't see them. Honestly, man, I can see the Seahawks beating them a couple times, maybe, if that's the case, because they just don't have enough. One thing I will say about Seattle, I know they don't have Russell Wilson, Geno Smith is the quarterback. One thing I will say is that Pete Carroll will put out a very competitive team, a defensive team. They may not win a lot of games, but I can't remember the last time they just been flat out blown out. They just don't get blown out there. Now, I mean, that doesn't result in wins, but I just don't see them just being a complete doormat, especially in this division. So, but other than, I think you nailed it on the head with this one here.
Yeah, and again, the NFC West is without question, probably the second or third best division in all football. So this is, the Rams getting 13 wins, which I believe they will not come easy by any stretch of the imagination. So before I get into my playoff predictions, we want to go ahead and real quick run through my award winners. Finishing at Coach of the Year, I think it's going to be Kevin O'Connell. Year one with this Minnesota Vikings team. Again, a guy who seems to me like a dude who will be an upgrade over Mike Zimmer in terms of late game execution with this roster. So I think he rounds out the coaches for Coach of the Year. I think Jameis Winston is going to win Comeback Player of the Year, given the injury from a year ago, given obviously how we know about how his tenure in Tampa unfolded. I know there's guys like Derrick Henry who's a candidate for this award, but I got Jameis Winston winning it, considering the fact that he's got as good of an offense as you could possibly have around him, a defense that is just tremendous. I do think Jameis Winston is going to lead the Saints to the playoffs and thus win Comeback Player of the Year. I don't like saying this, but I think for the second straight year, a player from the NFC East is going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. And actually, that I should say third straight year, because Chase Young won in 2020. Yeah. Micah Parsons did it in 2021. Right. I think Nakobe Dean is going to do it in 2022. This, to me, was without question the steal of the draft by the Philadelphia Eagles, taking a first-round talent, a guy to me who might have been the best player on last year's Georgia Bulldogs national championship team, coming to Philadelphia. Hated it as a guy who roots for the Dallas Cowboys. But I do think Nakobe Dean will be the Defensive Rookie of the Year. Moving now to Defensive Player of the Year. Let's stay in the NFC East, and let's stay with the linebacker Micah Parsons. I think he will be used primarily more as a pass rusher this year. Keeping Dan Quinn around was huge for this team. I think given what he did in year one, given the fact that this kid is hungry for the opportunity to get to the quarterback and make plays at the defensive side of the ball, I think he will win the Defensive Player of the Year. And Offensive Player of the Year, a guy who is on a new team, Devontae Adams, who might be the best receiver in all football. Given what he did with Aaron Rodgers, with, again, no other receiver to sort of take any attention away from him, now he goes to Las Vegas with guys like Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller, and we know about his connection with Derek Carr in college. I think Devontae Adams is due for yet another massive season. He'll be the Offensive Player of the Year. By the way, I forgot Offensive Rookie of the Year, by the way. I think it's going to be Chris Olave. I think Chris Olave, given what he's actually the all-time record holder for receiving touchdowns at Ohio State. Well, I think it was 35, I think. So coming to a Saints team that's already, he's got a veteran mentor in Jarvis Landry. He's got a good quarterback in Jameis Winston getting him the football. He's got a good offensive coordinator putting him in positions to succeed. And we all know the most important award, the MVP, is going to go to my man, Josh Allen. I told y'all he was the best quarterback coming out of 2018. Again, I don't think there's a quarterback in all of football that's being put in a better position to succeed than this guy. You add that along with his incredible talent as a guy at the quarterback position with his arm, his accuracy, which has improved tremendously since his rookie year. 6'6" and moves like he's Russell Wilson in the pocket, in and out, being able to extend plays. We understand the fact that I think he's got the highest passer rating in the playoffs in NFL history. He was unbelievable against the Patriots and the Chiefs last year in the postseason. I think that Josh Allen will win the MVP. So back to the predictions in terms of the playoffs. In the AFC, these are my playoff teams 1 through 7. I got Bills, Broncos, Ravens, Colts, Chiefs, Bengals, and Raiders, the last 3 being the wild card teams. And in the NFC, in order 1 through 7, I've got the Rams, Bucks, Vikings, Cowboys, 49ers, Saints, and Eagles. So before we get into playoff predictions, your thoughts on this, Ryan?
I think on the AFC, if you want to throw that up there real quick, if you don't mind, I could take a look at it. I mean, for me, the only thing missing is the Pittsburgh Steelers. So okay. I think the Bengals are probably the team that's going to be out, or possibly the Raiders. One of those two. I think they may not make the jump, I would say, just because I think how tight it's going to be. So, but other than that, I think it's spot on. Buffalo Bills are definitely the best team in the AFC as of now. So as far as the NFC is concerned, I got to get Green Bay in there, but just because they're going to win the division, according to my picks. Okay. Vikings probably can make that second slot. It's I think probably over the Eagles. Not over the Eagles. The Bucks. This one's tough. Bucks. Yeah, maybe the Bucks, man. I don't know, man. This is a tough one because if I just based off of my division winners, the Cowboys don't make the playoffs. Honestly, maybe the Cowboys might not even make the playoffs. I mean, so I might slot the Packers in over the Cowboys, unfortunately, because they just won't have enough wins, and the Packers will be a division winner, whereas the Cowboys won't be a divisional winner. So if I'm going to stay true to my division picks, that's probably the course of action I'll have to take on this one.
That's fair. That's fair. So real quick, going to the AFC wildcard round, given how I think the matchups will play themselves out, I think Denver beats Vegas, the 2 seed over the 7 seed. I got the Ravens eking out a win over the defending AFC champion Bengals. The Super Bowl loser curse continues. Right. And I think the 5 seed Kansas City Chiefs are going to get a little redemption from 2013. If you remember that big lead they blew against the Colts in that playoff game, I think they will go to the Lucas Oil Stadium and beat the Indianapolis Colts, the AFC South winner. And then moving on to the NFC, you'll have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers once again for the second straight year, ending the Philadelphia Eagles season in Tampa, which of course will be a beautiful sight to see for us, Ryan. I got the Minnesota Vikings barely eking out a win over the New Orleans Saints. If you told me the Saints get an upset win in this game, should it occur, would not be shocked in the slightest. And as I've said, literally since the Cowboys lost to the 49ers a year ago, I said January 14th or 15th of next season of 2023, they will lose in the wild card round again at home to the San Francisco 49ers. Right. So what's your thoughts on my predictions?
No, I would agree with those. Based on those matchups, I agree with all of them. Now, obviously, we know something's going to be, it's going to be different, obviously. But based off the scenarios, no, I would probably pick the same way.
Okay, so then moving on to the AFC divisional round, we're starting to get to the elite teams. I've got Buffalo as the 1 seed getting revenge over the Kansas City Chiefs. Finishing off the job that they should have finished on the road in Arrowhead. They'll have the Bills faithful behind them. What's the Bills fan base called again? I'm blanking.
Bills Mafia.
Bills Mafia behind them with their crazy tailgate shenanigans and whatnot. We understand what this team is and what they represent, and this is the team they've had circled on their schedule and circled all off season long. They will beat Kansas City in the divisional round this season, and Patrick Mahomes will not make the AFC Championship game for the first time in his career. And I've got the 2 seed Denver Broncos beating the Baltimore Ravens again. That altitude in Denver, man, is no joke. And by the way, this would be sort of another revenge scenario, because who could possibly forget the sort of quote unquote Hail Mary by Joe Flacco to Jacoby Jones in the 2012 season to beat the Denver Broncos over, I forgot what the corner's name was. I don't know, I'm blanking on his name, but to beat Peyton Manning. And the Ravens ended up winning the Super Bowl that season. So I think the Broncos will beat the Baltimore Ravens to advance to the AFC Championship game. Over to the NFC side, the defending champs beat their division rival for the second year in a row. The Rams beat the 49ers to host the NFC Championship game once again. And I've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tom Brady extending his career at least another game, beating the Minnesota Vikings to get back to the NFC Championship game for the second time in 3 years. Ryan, should these matchups bear out? I've got all home teams winning here. What do you think happens?
The AFC, I think that's about right. I don't have arguments about that. The NFC, though, you know what, man? I know everyone loves the Rams, but the Niners were literally an interception away of beating the Rams at home. Like, Like we forget that. And I think if Trey Lance is, like I said, comparable to at least Jimmy G, the Niners might be in business. Because I know Matthew Stafford won the Super Bowl and now everyone's just riding him now. I still just like he still has
not
that
buying in?
Detroit line in him. He still got that Detroit line in him, So I'm not saying he's terrible, but I really like the Niners. So that's the only probably one I would disagree with. Now, if the Bucs are in this position against the Vikings, I mean, gosh, I have to take Tom Brady over. If I'm going to go by quarterback, if that's my justification with the division, then I got to take Tom Brady over Kirk Cousins in the playoffs. So
I agree with 100%. 100%. I agree with you there. And look, like I said, if Kyle Shanahan has tended to have Sean McVay's number,
he does
over the course of their careers in that division. So listen, if my man Trey Lance leads the 49ers to the NFC Championship game and he beats the Rams to get there, hey, you won't hear any shot coming out of my voice.
Right.
To the conference championship games, who will be playing in Super Bowl 57? I think Denver goes to Buffalo and upsets the Buffalo Bills. Russell Wilson gets to the Super Bowl, and I think the defending champs will end the season of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I think finally this time, once and for all, will end the career of the great Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback who ever lived, the greatest player in NFL history, and in my view, the greatest player in the history of team sports. The Rams will do that. So I think it's going to be a basically an all-West Super Bowl, and the Super Bowl will be played out West in Arizona. Should these matchups occur, Ryan Flowers, your thoughts?
Ooh, man.
You disagree on both?
No, the Rams I can see, right? It'll be the second time they've ended Tom Brady's career, right? Unofficially.
Right.
But the big man, I don't know, man. I think that's a tough one because can
I tell you something before you continue?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think something that could factor, and this might sound crazy because it would be the AFC Championship game. I think considering the fact that Kansas City has been circled for the Buffalo Bills all offseason, I think maybe, just maybe, there could be at least a little letdown.
Yeah.
So
potentially, you know what? You're right. I mean, the Bills obviously showed in that back and forth game that they can actually compete offensively.
Oh gosh,
with just about anybody, which was a concern for me with Josh Allen in the playoffs, right? But he put that to bed. I mean, he tucked it away.
Oh yeah,
gave him warm milk. Read a bedtime story. That's done. I'm gonna have to go with the Bills, man. I just have to go with the Bills. I like the Bills and the Rams for Super Bowl.
Man, I was so tempted opening night of the NFL season, Rams-Bills, to possibly have
play each other. Yep.
Yeah, I mean to have to play the first game and to play the last game.
Yeah.
But I listen. I'm really, really high on Denver this season. So I do think they win the AFC, and I think the defending champ Rams will get back to the Super Bowl and win the NFC. So here you go. The matchup for Super Bowl 57 in Glendale, Arizona, a stadium where the Rams play once a year against the Cardinals, a stadium where Russell Wilson played the Cardinals every year, a stadium that
the Super Bowl.
Exactly, lost the Super Bowl, and the last two Super Bowls in Arizona have been maybe, you could argue, maybe the two greatest Super Bowls ever, right? The Giants beating the undefeated Patriots, the helmet catch followed by the Plaxico Burress touchdown, Michael Strahan going out with the ring, and then in 2014, the greatest football game I've ever seen, personally. Maybe the greatest Super Bowl of all time, all capped off, of course, with the iconic Malcolm Butler interception.
Right.
Why they didn't give the ball to Beast Mode, we will never know. But the winner, should this matchup occur, in Super Bowl 57, in my view, will be a fourth title coming to Denver, Colorado. Russell Wilson becomes the third consecutive quarterback to come to a new team and win the Super Bowl year one. Tom Brady did it. Matthew Stafford did it. And I think my man out of Wisconsin, Russell Wilson, will lead the Denver Broncos to a Super Bowl title and avenge his loss from years back when he lost to the New England Patriots. Your thoughts, Mr. Flowers?
Broncos country. Let's ride. Let's ride.
You agree?
Right. I do. I think, if just basing off this matchup, I like it. I think the Broncos defense can stand up a little bit to the Rams offense. They can get after the quarterback as well. And if Russell Wilson can shell out a really good performance, which we know he can, it's in him. I think he can outmatch the LA Rams and Matthew Stafford. I mean, again, the Rams they're great. They're good on paper. Don't get me wrong. And they're still a good football team. but they can be beaten. They can be beaten. They're not this juggernaut that people just think like, oh my God, they can't be. They're not one. They're not going to go down as one of the greatest Super Bowl winning teams.
No, they were the 4th seed last year.
Right. Exactly. Right. You know, and they dropped a couple games early in the year that they probably shouldn't have dropped. But you know, they are not this dynamic team that everyone. Now OBJ not there anymore. I know they added Allen Robinson, but OBJ, honestly, and I'll eat some crow. I didn't think he had the juice anymore, and he showed honestly in that Super Bowl that he had the juice. And honestly, when he got hurt, the air kind of got let out that SoFi Stadium until finally Cooper Kupp arrived and started doing his thing. You know, and they ended up winning that game. But again, it's not like they just blew the doors off of anybody in the playoffs. I want to say, I mean, the Bucks almost came back and beat them, right? You're interception away from losing to the Niners, right? And you're one pass protection away from Jalen Ramsey being burnt by Jamar Chase on literally a 4th and 1. So, I mean, so they can be beaten. And a team like the Denver Broncos with a nice pedigree with Russell Wilson, I can foresee that actually coming into fruition and him handling his business, and they ride off into the sunset with Sierra.
Exactly. Well, again, one more time for the audience, because I just love saying it. I'm not even a Broncos fan. Broncos country. Say it for me, Ryan.
Let's ride.
There we go. I think the Denver Broncos win Super Bowl 57. And so with that, Ryan Flowers, appreciate you coming on the show once again. Y'all check out Clutch Sports Talk.
Anytime,
he'll give y'all more information on YouTube. But thanks for coming on the show, my man. Have a good one, and here's to a great football season.
Man, hey, cheers to you. Appreciate you having me on, man. You know, all you got to do is pick up the phone, man. I'm here for you if you need to. I'll hop on anytime. But thanks a lot. And hey, everyone, hey, football season's here.
Amen.
We made it.
We made it. Yes, sir, man. Appreciate you. Of course, we appreciate Ryan Flowers, as always, coming on Carving It Up Live, or in this case, the Carving It Up 2022 NFL Kickoff Show. Before we go, most importantly, and man, I've waited a long time to do this. We've got a football game tonight, folks. We've got a football game that counts tonight. A real-life NFL game between the Los Angeles Rams, the defending Super Bowl champions, who are hosting the Buffalo Bills. So let's get it on right now. The background music. Here we go. So when you have a Super Bowl champion, more times than not, they're going to open as the favorite. More times than not, that's the case. Not here. Buffalo is a 2.5-point favorite. So on the road, they're essentially giving Buffalo a field goal when we know they always give the home team a field goal in Vegas. So a couple of things to look out for in this game. Already week 1 off the bat, and usually we avoid this, is some key players being injured. For the Rams, Van Jefferson, who was great for them out of the slot and on the outside, especially when Odell Beckham Jr. went down in that Super Bowl. Van Jefferson is out with an injury. And then you've also got, for the Buffalo Bills, Tre'Davious White, their superstar corner. He's going to come back this season, but he is still rehabbing from that ACL injury from a year ago. He will not play tonight. So in this game, you're going to have a dynamic between what are they going to do about Cooper Kupp, because we understand they're going to double him the entire football game. Odell Beckham Jr. is not currently a Ram as we speak, although he could join later on. Sean McVay indicated that there's a chance that they could bring him back. There's a locker room spot available, apparently. To me, this is the Allen Robinson game for the Rams. This is the game where Allen Robinson shows up, shows out, and makes his impact felt for the defending world champions who, again, as I said, Tampa Bay last year, again, I'm wearing my Tom Brady jersey, but Tampa Bay a year ago won the Super Bowl and brought everybody back, all 22 starters. Rams said, we'll do you one better. We'll win the Super Bowl and we'll improve our roster. We're going to add Bobby Wagner, okay? We're going to add Allen Robinson. This is like, hold on a minute. Like, well, what's going on? So, offseason acquisitions aside, both teams hit it out of the park this offseason. I mean, you look at the Bills taking a player from the Rams in Von Miller. So you're going to have all this dynamic between the offseason free agents that they added. I thought both teams had a fairly good draft. And you've got two of, without question, the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. A guy in Josh Allen, who many argue very well could be the best quarterback in the NFL. And by season's end, we may be all saying that. I do, however, feel like 2.5 points is a lot. As good as Buffalo's going to be, I think they're going to be the 1 seed in the AFC. I think they're going to host the AFC Championship game and lose to the Denver Broncos, who I got winning the Super Bowl. Buffalo's going to have a great season. 2.5 points on the road against the champs in week 1 without your number 1 corner. That to me is a little bit disrespectful to the Los Angeles Rams. And so because of that, I am actually going to take the Rams to, and it's crazy to say, the defending champs to upset the Buffalo Bills in week 1 of this new 2022 NFL season. Again, the Bills are 2.5-point favorites. This is not my upset of the week. That'll come on tomorrow's show, so stay tuned for that. My NFL week 1 predictions for all of Sunday's action. We got 14 games, but I've got the Rams winning this game 27-24 over the Buffalo Bills. And with that is all the time I have for tonight's show. Again, shout out Ryan Flowers. Go check out Clutch Sports Talk on Sunday mornings, probably around 8 Pacific, 11 Eastern, somewhere around that time. He'll keep y'all posted on social media. But check out, he's going to be talking about the latest NFL headlines, the biggest games on that particular Sunday. He's going to be talking about, he lives in Vegas, so he's going to be giving you betting lines, stuff to look out for. So check out his stuff. Massive shout out to him for coming on the show today. And folks, we have waited a long, long, long time for it. In mere minutes, an NFL game will be played. A new season is upon us. Rams will get back to the Super Bowl, but they will fall at the hands of the Denver Broncos. And if you think I'm crazy, you very well could be right. But 2 years ago, I said Kansas City was going to win the AFC, and then Tampa Bay was going to win the NFC. And Tampa Bay was going to beat Kansas City in the Super Bowl. And what happened? So I'm just saying, every other year, it's kind of like Tom Brady wins the Super Bowl every other year. Every other year, I'm just saying. All right. Have a great week, have a great evening, everybody. Stay tuned for tomorrow night's show. I'm going to give my whole week 1 NFL predictions, all of Sunday's action. We're going to have the upset of the week. We're going to have, for the second year in a row, if I were a betting man. Stay tuned for it all, okay? I got some shockers in there, okay? So stay tuned. Have a great evening, everybody. Enjoy some football. Man, it feels good to say those words. God bless you all. Peace out. Football is back, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube. Be sure to click that big red subscribe button and go check out the other clips and full shows of Carving It Up Live. Have a blessed day.